Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the Wheel of Fortune. If you're new, welcome, and we're about halfway through a series on the major arcana. I'm a poet. I'm exploring them through my own poetry and also as poetry, as a language of images. I'm going to start this the way I start all of them with an image of the Rider-Waite-Smith, simply because it is such an iconic deck, and it is the deck that is the basis for so many decks from the 20th and 21st century, and also because it's the system that I feel comfortable in. So this is the Rider-Waite-Smith. This is the Wheel of Fortune, and you can see that it is borrowing from a number of different traditions: Jewish, Egyptian, Christian, astrology. It's, for me, not a very pleasant card to look at. She has some very beautiful cards. This is not one of them. And so I'm going to just move on to the universal Waite, which is when I reach for a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, this is the one I reach for. It's the same image. The drawing is by Pamela Coleman Smith, but the colors are by Mary Hanson Roberts. The poem that I want to read about this has a word that's from Yiddish. It's called mishmash, and many of you may already know what that means. It's putting a bunch of stuff together that don't necessarily go together in any kind of way, so there's not necessarily any kind of connections. And I feel very much that this is a card that's a mishmash. She's grabbing from many different traditions here, and the poem does comment on this. I want to talk about the Wheel of Fortune a little bit because this is a card that basically you spin at games. It's totally luck. It can be good luck. It can be bad luck. And the reason I wanted to talk a little bit about this is a lot of people are like, well, I got the Wheel of Fortune, so that's a good thing. It's like, no, the word fortune, the way we use it nowadays, in some ways, oh, I won a fortune, so it must be good. Fortune simply means luck, and you can have good luck or bad luck. So when you get this card, something's going to happen that's outside of your control, and you don't know if it's going to be good, you don't know if it's going to be bad, but you have no control over it. So I want to read you the poem that goes with it, and it is called Mishmash. What a mishmash! Tarot and Torah and the 4 Christian angels in the corners. The female Sphinx is Greek, but she's wearing the Egyptian-style headdress in disguise. She has no answers, only riddles. A snake slithers down one side. A fox-headed human rides the wheel upward. Who can make sense of this? No one knows what will happen. All they can say is change. So that last word, I think I was thinking a little bit of keywords. And one of the things that we know for sure if we see this in a reading is there's something happening. Something's going to happen. Something's going to change. We don't know if it's going to be good or bad. Sometimes you get intimations of that by the cards and the position of this in the reading, but generally this mishmash of symbols taken from so many different traditions really doesn't mean anything. You cannot read this card and say it's going to be good or it's going to be bad. So that's really all I want to say about this. I do think that the mishmash, the fact that it is such a mishmash, another word we could use for that that's not quite so judgmental is eclectic. It's like you're pulling from here, you're pulling from there, so forth. But when you put them all together, it's just like, a confused mess. That's really what this card is. I don't think that there's any way you can look at this card and know anything other than the key word that many people use, which is change. I do want to comment on the fact that in the poem I say this is a Greek Sphinx. The Greek Sphinx is the one who encountered Oedipus on the road and asked him the riddle, and she is female. However, Egyptian Sphinxes are male. So we can see clearly that this is got a breast, but it is wearing an Egyptian headdress. So even that part of it is confused. but we're going to look at a number of different takes on it. I'll start with the ones that are closest to the Rider-Waite Smith. So this card that I want to look at is obviously drawn from the Rider-Waite Smith, but what an incredibly strong character is behind this wheel. She's carrying a sword in this upright position, which makes her look like justice, and which makes you feel like there should be some justice with this card. But she is not. If you look at her from the waist down, she is a beast. I guess that is probably a reference to the Sphinx. If you remember, the Greek Sphinx is female. She is the one who doesn't give answers. She just asks you riddles. So she can't tell you, or she won't tell you what is going to happen, but something's going to happen. And she is guarding this wheel. This sword is not to guard you. Down one side is that snake. It's traveling downward. There's nothing traveling upward. There's no other creature on the other side. And that makes me feel that the snake hasn't to do with going up and down so much as it is perhaps just a reference to the goddess. But if you look at what's on the ground, you see bare mountains on one side, and then a mountainside that is on fire, above which there is a stormy sky, and then a clearing sky on the other side where there's just like wisps of wind left over. So could be good, could be not so good. I'm struck by her face, the strength in it. It is a very, very powerful image. And as you can see also, this is a Black woman. This is a deck that is very, very diverse. I started with the sword, I guess, because it looked like justice. So this is called Not Justice. The woman who guards the wheel carries a sword upright as if she is justice. But she is not justice. Her long tail and hind paws warn us. There is no stopping these changes. A snake winds its way down to the mountains, the trees on fire. Under the stormy sky, where on one side clouds dissipate, just the barest of winds remain. Whatever happens next is not up to you. This is such a strong, strong image. She is protecting this wheel. She's not protecting us. Whatever happens is not up to us. I think it is actually becoming one of my favorite images of the Wheel of Fortune. There's still a certain amount of mishmash there in that the letters are still there and so forth. There's some symbols, the corners, but it seems so, just working as a poet, and this is part of why I do this, is I work with the image itself. It is so striking, it is so strong. I have absolutely no doubt but that this woman is strong, stronger than me, that she knows secrets, that she has control even over the weather, over the fire, over the mountains, the earth. She's powerful in ways that I can't combat. I can only wait and see what's going to happen. Our only power with the Wheel of Fortune is in how we respond to whatever the change is. I have to say that I think this is an incredibly strong image, and it is from the This Might Hurt Tarot. This next card I want to share with you is from the World Spirit Tarot. This is a favorite tarot of mine. I love the sort of woodblock feel at the same time that she's using these really bright colors. And I think this is a very unusual take on the Rider-Smith. It is as eclectic. I'm not going to call it a mishmash quite as much, but it certainly is drawing from a few different places. You have a very different wheel here. You only have humans on the wheel, an infant at the top, and two women who are bound to it. They have no choice. They are there. Something different is these two people on the bottom. You have a naked woman with long black hair and flower in her hair holding the wheel on one side, and she is assisted by either the god Pan or another satyr. And then across this, and it's all happening above this water. And across the way, there is a deer who is outlined in gold, which makes me think it's the horned god. And then on the other side is a sheaf of wheat, which has to do with fertility. So this wheel clearly has to do with life, with being possibly the wheel of life. There's sexuality involved. And there's this interesting symbol coming down from the wheel. And I refer to that in the poem. So I'll talk about that after I read. And I call this one Over the Vast Water. The brown-skinned woman, a yellow flower in her waist-length hair, holds the wheel, assisted by the god Pan or some other satyr. They spin it over the vast water. The baby crawls precariously on top, looking at the sun, but the moon behind him is a waning crescent. The women on each side are bound to the wheel. They have no choice on their way up or down. Across the water, a buck stands in a golden glow, looks at the sheaf of wheat. Beneath the wheel, the door into life, or a drop of blood falling. So when I write poems, I have to look at the images and I have to look at them closely. And that's why, looking at the waning crescent moon, when the moon is waning, for example, you wouldn't plant during that time because the moon is getting smaller. You would plant when you have the crescent on the other side at the new moon because the moon is then going to grow. And so even now there are farmers who will follow that, even farmers in the United States, not just farmers who are still indigenous and following those ways, who plant with the moon. So the baby's looking at the sun and like, oh, it's all good. But behind him is the dark side, is the waning crescent moon. Things are not always good. One woman is going up, one woman is going down. They don't have control over this. I do think that the horned god and the sheaf of wheat reminds us that this is the wheel of life that we're talking about. Well, maybe we chose, maybe we didn't, depending on your belief system, to come into this lifetime. But once we're here, we don't have control over a lot of it. The other symbol that I'm looking at is that red symbol at the bottom. You can see that it looks like a woman's vagina. This is the door into life. It's another clue that this is, in fact, the wheel of life. But you can also see it as a drop of blood. So you can see it. I think those two things actually work together. It's like when we choose, if we do, mortality, if we choose to become human. We talked about this earlier in the Lover's card where, the love between spirit and matter, come together and we become human beings. If that is true, then we are on this wheel. In the East, they would call it the wheel of karma, and people want to get off it because it's pain. You have the Buddha, for example, basically saying life is pain. There's this movie, Down by Law, that Tom Waits is in. It's an old cult classic if any of you are into film. And he says, it's a sad and beautiful world. I think, wow, like that just captured so much. That is like the essence. Buddha has a whole philosophy about that, spent his whole life trying to figure out, how do I escape pain? How do I get off the wheel? And there are people who, are trying their best in this lifetime to find a way not to come back. Some of us, in spite of all the pain, love it here and are happy to come back. The sort of eclectic, gathering things from different traditions doesn't seem as jarring here. I'm not seeing the Sphinx figure. The Pan figure has been added, and Pan is notoriously sexy, but was also the guardian of the wild world. So I think that's really interesting that he's there holding up life, because for me it's saying we're not, even though there's only human beings that we're showing on this wheel, the fact that Pan is there seems to represent to me that this is a much bigger wheel, that we're talking about the great wheel of life that contains all living things. I guess the last thing I want to say about it is they're holding this wheel over this vast body of water, which it seems to me is the deep unconscious, that place from which we all come. Evolutionarily, we all came from the ocean. In our own human lives, we all came from the ocean. That was the little sac inside our mother that was full of water. So we all come from the water. Psychologically, water, of course, means the unconscious. I guess this is another one that I feel is a very brilliant image of the Wheel of Fortune. Somehow, if I had this in a reading, I wouldn't be as nervous as I am with the Rider-Waite Smith one. This one reminds me that yes, we are tied to this wheel, but it is the wheel of life, and there is meaning somehow, even when things happen that are outside our control. And so, in spite of the bright sun and the waning moon, in spite of the women bound to the side, I'm reminded that this is the wheel of life that I find myself on. And there will be things that happen that are painful, that what matters is how I react to them. This next card I want to share with you is from the Shadowland Tarot. And I guess the first thing that I noticed on it is just all the colors. It feels more like a roulette wheel than some of the others. There's all kinds of symbols in there. I think they're mostly astrological symbols. And then in the center is a hand. And in the hand is the Hebrew letter for Chai. It's often just used as a symbol of life because it's the first letter of the word Chai, life. This is a very different card. There's two angels on here, but we're not sure if they're angels or devils. They've got those wings, but they've also got horns, and there's one at the top and one at the bottom. We've got some kind of a cat, alligator, dragon on one side climbing down, and then on the right hand side you can see there's another creature coming up that looks sort of like a rabbit. Rabbits are both connected with the goddess and also trickster figures. So yeah, there's nothing here that's going to give you a clue. But I did love how colorful this is. You know, it makes me want to take a spin. The wheel is beautiful. All the colors mesmerize you as it spins. One angel above, one below. Both have horns. Beast scramble up one side or fall off the other. It doesn't matter. This is the wheel of life. Everything will come around again. So because of that hand in the center with a chai on it, I think it is emphasizing again, this is the wheel of life. I think there's also things about it that are just very funny. This angel at the bottom that's hanging on, you know, by their fingers, trying not to fall off. The one at the top who's just like sitting there because he's at the top. Just sitting there, you know, holding his legs, very comfortable, while the others are trying to scramble up or keep from falling down. So there's a sense of humor to it. And I just really do love the bright colors. So this, again, is telling us this is a game of chance. And because it looks so much like an arcade, don't count on it being good luck. Good luck might happen, but the house always wins. And I think that that is the scary part of this card, is that it's the wheel of life. And isn't it beautiful? Aren't the colors beautiful? Isn't the world a beautiful place? Aren't we continually gasping at its beauty? And then something happens to remind us. Something happens that's outside our control. And of course, there are always so many things happening that are outside our control, that are sad. So again, that sad and beautiful world is caught. But I think this one, it's like you're dazzled by the colors. And so you're going to give it a run. And here we are. So are we going to play? And so that's the Wheel of Fortune from the Shadowland Tarot. This next card is from the Golden Tarot by Kat Black. And if you've been following along, you have seen other cards by her. If you have not, I just want to say that this is a collage deck made all from Renaissance art. When I first looked at this, of course, I had to say, what has this got to do with the wheel? I can see that there is a wheel up there. So I started with the images one by one. And I think that this is also part of what we need to do when we are reading. I would certainly read this card differently than I would read some of the other cards that we've seen. This is not a Mishigas. This is a scene. This could almost be a nativity scene. I mean, it certainly is a nativity scene that there's a birth, but we don't know that that's the infant Jesus or anything. But they are in this place with the animals and so forth. So let me read the poem and then we'll talk a little bit more. This is called Animals and Angels. At first sight, the man seems to be looking under the bed. But no, he is kneeling, hunched over a small cooking fire he is tending, a bowl and spoon at his side. The woman in the bed holds the infant. She is all dark blue and white. She wraps them both in a thick red blanket. Above their heads, a wheel spins, animals and angels. Outside the window, a cow and an ass share dinner. On the thatched roof, a shadow. So this is a card that can be read in a Christian context if you wanted to. You could certainly say this is the Nativity. These are the four angels, which are sometimes shown as represented by animals. Interestingly, two of them are light, two of them are black. But outside there is that ominous shadow on the roof. So you could say it is prefiguring, the eventual crucifixion and, death of this infant who is born in such a humble place. So you can read it within the Christian myth. But you can also read it as all of our lives. We are all born into this life, not always in such humble circumstances, but we are all born naked into this life to a woman. Interestingly, she does wear the white and blue of the Blessed Virgin. Those are her colors, but she's got the bright red there as well, which is the color of life and the color often associated with the goddess. I love that there are animals in this picture, just to remind us how connected we are to them, and that the wheel is not central, but it is there and it is spinning, and it's like you've been born. You are now on this wheel with animals and angels, with spirit and matter. Here you are. You have a wonderful father here who is trying to get a little fire going to heat up some food. He's in an awkward position, and yet you feel like he's going to do his best to make sure that this mother is fed so that she can feed her child. But for all of us, the shadow is there. There will be sorrow as well as happiness in this life. So in this scene that is a birth scene, a scene that is joyous, is happy, there's also the shadow. And in all of our lives, what a joyous thing to be born. What a joyous thing to have a child. And yet, the shadow, there will be sadness. I think one of the hardest things in being a parent is seeing sadness or things happen to your child that you are helpless to change or do anything about. It's almost harder than when something happens to yourself. So this is also, I think, an emphasis on parenthood in this card. That's a little bit different than some of the other cards where it's the individual going up and down. In this one, it's both of these parents are working already for the comfort of this child, for the growth of this child. And so we know that there will be great joy, and there is joy in his birth or her birth. Outside on the roof, there is a shadow. That's just something we take on if we are in this life. If we decide to have a child, we know that there will be joy. We also know there will be sorrow. So for this reason, and for the sort of humanizing of this card, the storying of it, this is a whole little scene. This is not a mishmash. This is not pulling things from a million places, even though it's a collage. She pulled from Renaissance paintings, which most of them are religious, so they have some coherence in that way. But what she builds here is a scene from a story. And I think that's a very different thing, and I like it very much. I think, getting this card in a reading would be interesting, because it is talking about the everydayness of these things that happen. Things, even small things, that just aren't in our control. Our child gets an earache or a toothache, or, just is acting in a way that they're not listening, and their behavior is harming them, and you have to either wait through that stage or do whatever you can to help them get through it. So I think that it was kind of brilliant of her to turn this into a scene rather than go with that abstract spinning wheel that everyone else. And this is the Wheel of Fortune from the Golden Tarot by Kat Black. Well, with this next card, we're looking at the wheel again. And I guess I'm going to say that this is probably a shadow card. This old woman seems to be the one turning the wheel. She is got a frown on her face. The woman sitting on the three-legged stool, who has a very big belly. So it's either a man with a very big belly or a pregnant woman sitting on this stool. Could be either. A lot of times the men wear that hat, but on the other hand, the belly does look very pregnant. And they have a tail, so that's interesting also. The woman who's running the wheel is completely dressed. She is dressed in very royal colors, as opposed to the other person who is naked. Obviously, when you're clothed and the person with you is naked, you have some superiority over them. That woman has no choice. She's sitting there with her hands up to her face as if, oh no, oh no. So she's either going to take another spin on the wheel of life, or she's going to have a child, and that brings her into the wheel of life. And it's kind of a terrifying wheel. This is no angel. This is a devil up at the top there, this demon, carrying two wands. Very, very scary. Both of the animals on the side are those really strange fish that you find in this deck with very big teeth. And they're both like climbing up to the devil. So it's not like the top is good. The top is just owned by the devil. And we don't even know what's at the bottom other than a stone wall and this place of, oh my God, what's going to happen next? The choices on the wheel: the broken heart, a hand that at least tells you I've been here, that looks like a face or possibly a skull, a moon, possibly a star. So maybe there's some hopeful things. But in general, this is, I think, a shadow card. You might want to use it that way to do some shadow work. So I'd like to read the poem. It's called Who Wouldn't Be? The old woman in red, blue, and gold is trying to explain to the naked woman, pregnant and worried, sitting on the three-legged stool. Who wouldn't be worried with that red demon and his two wands, sharp-toothed fish crawling up the sides of the wheel? Her choices don't seem great: a broken heart, a hand, somewhere a moon or star. The woman grabs the central mechanism, gives the wheel another spin. So there's no compassion there. This woman is just like, gonna spin the wheel again. And this naked person is kind of stuck with whatever it comes out to be. In terms of shadow work with some of these cards, I think it's very easy for a lot of us who might have been brought up to think that things are our fault. I think of The Handmaid's Tale. There's that terrible scene toward the beginning where they're all in the red center and the girl is telling the story of how she was gang raped and expecting some compassion from the group. And instead, Aunt Lydia, who is essentially the prison keeper, but they call her Aunt Lydia, says, "Whose fault was it?" And they're like, "Her fault, her fault, her fault." And a lot of us have heard that in our lives when things happen. Whose fault is it? It's your fault, your fault, until it becomes internalized. Somehow we are taking responsibility for things that are not our fault. And so this card can help us work with that, because clearly she doesn't even want to be there. And the woman is just going to run that. She's just going to spin that thing again. And the choices are not that great. So that is the Wheel of Fortune from the Deviant Moon. It's a difficult deck. If you're someone who's had a lot of trauma, this might not be the deck to do shadow work with. But on the other hand, it's a really useful deck, especially if you're someone who does feel like you're other or outside or excluded in some way. It is a deck you can do a lot of work with. Well, speaking of shadow cards, so this is the Halloween Tarot. And the Halloween Tarot is great at using humor in order to say profound things. This guy is bound on this wheel, this arcade wheel that would have been at a circus or whatever, and someone's throwing knives at him. And there are knives that are stuck in the wheel itself. And we know this game, right? We've seen this in movies or whatever, how you get to be chosen to be the one that this is happening to. He does not look happy. He's like, how the hell did I get here? This is a very sort of ominous look at the wheel of life. Yeah, how did I get to be here? I don't want to be on this wheel. There's writing, the symbols that are on there are astrological. Interestingly, it's like a big star that spins this wheel, but all the heads are skulls. And again, you see that waning crescent moon up there, looking down, very happily watching on. And then there's this immense elephant who is ready to spin the wheel. Of course, this is at a circus or arcade. There's also some stuff going on at the bottom with the cat, who is, I think, on pretty much every card in the Halloween Tarot. I'm going to read the poem, and then we'll just talk for a couple more moments. This is called The Show. He is clamped to the wheel, a star of skulls. Someone is throwing knives. 3 are stuck in the wheel. None have hit him yet. Behind the wheel, a huge elephant reaches her trunk to spin it. The waning crescent moon watches in delight. The cat is distracted by the show. The mouse escapes while he can. So there is that time when you feel like people are throwing knives and you're just barely like missing them. You almost got hit, but you didn't. But you're terrified about where you are. I think, again, this is one of those cards that you couldn't use as a shadow card. Here I am in this, on this wheel of life. I don't feel like I chose this. Bad things are happening. It's going for another spin. It's a waning crescent moon that doesn't bode well. But there are, on the other hand, stars, but both in the sky and around the bottom. Actually, 3 groups of stars, yellow, orange, and green. Those are hopeful. The star is always hopeful. This cat looks on. She's distracted by the show, enough so that this mouse can escape although it seems to be more interested in the toes of the elephant. So that's kind of an interesting thing too. It's like, get out of there before the elephant moves its foot and steps on you. I do like this deck. I enjoy decks that use humor to talk about things that are not humorous, that are deeper than that. And the Halloween deck does that very well. So again, you have no control here. Good or bad could happen. Right now, it feels like you're a target. And if I got that in a reading, I think that would be one of the ways I would think about that. You feel like a target right now. Things are happening that you feel like you're just dodging bullets all the time. That's a good, I don't want to say it's a good card to have, but it's a good card to get in the sense that it gives you a warning. So all of these different artists who have kind of, taken different ways to look at this wheel give us different nuances when we read and as readers. So yeah, if this came up, that's what I would think. I would think, wow, you feel like a target right now, don't you? So let's talk about that. What's going on that's making you feel that way? And what can you do? How can you react to lessen those feelings? Well, this card is another, I guess, shadow card, you would say. And like the Halloween Tarot, does it through humor. This is a very cartoonish style that not everybody will respond to. But if you watched a lot of Looney Tunes, as I did when I was a child, there's something in this that you can find. This took a very different tact than the last two. Both of them turned it into scenes. In that last one, he was clearly at a circus, tied to the wheel. This goes back to the Rider-Waite-Smith idea, but this wheel has arms. And in one hand, it's got that snake. In the other hand, it's holding a dog or something by its foot. So they don't have control. The wheel has control. The Sphinx is there, which I find interesting. One of the books is simply taking a nap. One of them is just, I don't know, it looks like they're sunbathing or something. One of them is just like looking up at it like, oh, and the other is like trying to figure it out. So those kinds of things we think about in terms of there being answers perhaps in books or in study or whatever, that's not necessarily the case in this card. So let me read this. And it's called Sometimes. Sometimes everything seems against you. Some fat cat in an Egyptian headdress is on top, living the good life. The arms of the world wrestle snakes, dangle you by a leg. Its face is mean, with big teeth, ready, and eyes wild with its own power. Books in the four corners are no help. They bathe in their own glory, watch and wonder or dismay, or just take a nap. They have no words of wisdom. Shit happens. That last line, it could be another keyword for the Wheel of Fortune, which is shit happens. Because there's no looking at this and finding any, is it good, is it bad, whatever. It looks shadowy to me in the sense that I don't see anything good here. And the world itself, the wheel itself, has that really mean expression. I mean, those teeth are scary and those eyes are mean. So I would put this, I guess, in the shadow category. I think that the books are actually very funny, that somehow you think like, if I study philosophy or tarot or religion or some system, science, whatever, I'm going to be able to figure this out. No, there's stuff you just don't have control over. This wheel of life, or this wheel, which actually doesn't even seem of life in this one. It just seems like a wheel you got caught on, whether you wanted to or not. That's the Wheel of Fortune in the Mystical Medley. So if you enjoy cartoons, this might be a deck that you might want to look at. So those are the Wheel of Fortune cards I have for you today. There were so many wonderful ones that I again broke this up into two parts. I'm looking forward to doing part 2, which goes even further from the Wheel of Fortune that we know from the Rider-Waite-Smith. I hope to see you then. Please remember to like and subscribe. I hope the Wheel of Fortune spins favorably your way this week.